second, if you don't mind. Give a little feedback. Go back to Rondori. I just like to solicit any kind of feedback or discoveries or what's your Rondori been like for you?
I need more practice.
More practice. It is good to have more practice. Rondori can be sensitive and exhausting. What do you find in it? What's working for you? What do you like? What's alive in you? What's your Rondori?
Different people have different styles.
Oh, yes. That's for sure. Yeah. And we can get very imbued with the people we're used to. And then you take your hands on with people you're not used to and say, oh, it's a whole different world. That's right. And it should be. Because, yeah, you want all the difference you can get. Anybody else?
What's the idea of continuing with your encounter?
Yeah. Until it's completely done.
You know,
yeah. Right. Oh, pat, pat.
You're not training to be dead.
Take the entire ukemi.
Yeah.
And that's hard. You got bad knees, you got a bad back, things hurt, and you don't want to take the entire ukemi because you don't want to get up off the ground again. I understand. I've been through it for years. But as much as you're physically capable of, what your boundaries and capability are for yourself, you want to invest in it as much as you can. Because again, it's that resilience. Tomiki in his book said, you got to study the way of loss. You got to study the ways of defeat. You got to study the ways of victory too. You got to study the stuff that kicks ass. But you also have to study and really imbue yourself in all the conditions that are what we would think of as losing. Defeat. You have to imbue that in you because that's resilience. And when we try to live in a world in which we're just one half of it and not the other half, and Aikido teachers tend to be really bad, because since Takeda's all the way back to Daito, he would just stand up and kill everybody and he'd never take a fall. And so that became a culture of the big cheese don't fall down thing. And then it becomes just inculcated, and then you finally get to be the teacher and you're on your school and you don't fall anymore. Everybody else falls for you. That's not a healthy deal. It's not healthy for teachers. It's not healthy for students. It's not a healthy culture because you're not creating both halves of the equation. You're not doing Uke-tori and you're not getting the whole thing. But I'm rammering on again. I'll stop and then people can go back and play more all your life. But session's about over for this afternoon session. Have a little break time before Aikido again. And then Judo, if you really want some Judo. And the Judo starts at 7:30, so man, it'll be a rockin' evening too. But any other reflections you guys have? I'm talk too much. Yeah.
I'm looking at, working with a real variety of people.
Yeah.
Here, they size-wise. There seems to be a difference on how you approach the really big guys like Russell. There's a balance between attack and retreat that's different. Is that right? I mean, is that something somebody else can notice?
Everybody moves differently.
I mean, with a small person, you can pretty much stay on attack, sort of movement in more, it seems like. Whereas for the big guy like Russell, I mean, at some point he can just overwhelm you if you don't. And this is totally independent of technique. This is just movement.
Just size.
Center to center.
Is it this? I'll ask you this: is it the same for all big guys? It's the same for me. It's the same for Russell. It's the same for.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
A little bit.
All right.
It's more so with you two.
There's two things that come to my mind, and anybody else, but our speed is different, and you can't accelerate us. We have an easier time accelerating you than you're accelerating us. We shouldn't accelerate you either, but people can get into habits of accelerating their partner because they can. And then they get a hold of a heavier mass, and then you can't. And it's like, uh-oh, and then your game plan has to change. So that gets in there sometimes. Sometimes the speed of the feet, you're dealing with lighter, quicker people. Their feet are going, and our feet are going boom, boom, boom. And that's a little difference too.
You might be feeling a skill differential there.
Skill differential is part of it. That's why I asked some of it. Yeah. There's also the thing that a lot of big guys I run into have a habit. Come on, big guy. We're going to be a big guy. And they have a habit of getting right in here with each other. Like, I'm just gonna put my belly on it, you know? And they have this belly-to-belly thing that they like to do.
Sumo.
Yeah, and they get this, put my belly on your thing, because we know we are the bigger mass, and that it's gonna have to start working around our mass. Because if you take two weights and you put them on a string and you spin them in space, and one weight's big and the other weight's little, you get an asymmetrical cycle thing. You get two weights that are equal, put them on a string, spin them in space, and you get a very symmetrical. So the heavier mass is going to be the center of the orbit in a general tendency.
Maybe, I wonder maybe if I'm sensing that as
It
a
might be.
tendency, and so that there's an unconscious desire to take advantage of that in some way.
I know in judo that you take a small person and you have a lot more tendency to throw them forward and over into big flips and into forward lines and sideways lines. And you get a hold of a guy bigger than you, and it's almost always going to be some kind of back throw. Not always, but more often than not. But when you get into a really hot situation, the big guys are more vulnerable in these lines than in these lines. And the littler guys are vulnerable in these lines, and less so much, relatively speaking. And foot sweeps smoke everybody. So it doesn't matter with those. But, so there are some big differences that get it in size and shape. And I can't define them better than what I've already defined. Anybody else? Ever thought on that?
Well, but you can still be offensive. Like Prentice will just manhandle me like
Oh, yeah.
nothing because of the timing.
Sure.
So
And it's
you
not
can,
your size.
yeah, if you just wait just a little bit, like when we step. So when I step, just move into me. So now, like I recover, try to recover. I'm still in trouble.
Right.
So when I keep moving offensively, as long as you stay with my timing, I'm still can't regain my balance.
Back to the accelerating thing. You can't speed them up. You got to go with their plodding rhythm, whatever it is. I don't know. We'll have to experiment. Anything else?
I think you also have to, if I'm being very defensive in this situation, then I'm cooked right away.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. The bulldozer's going to ride over.
Right, right.
And we want to invest in that. We want to learn that thoroughly.
Well, I
we
want
want to
that,
learn
but
that
also
backing up gets us
what
there.
I've learned is
Right.
to attack.
Yeah, you better
If
get
you're
off.
attacking Big Henry,
Take a piece of the
he's
center.
He's still got
Yeah.
to deal with that.
Yeah.
And you guys have to deal with that.
You have to get a piece of their center and as soon as you can, whatever that means. And it can be ugly and weird and crazy, and it can go all the way to the floor, and it can be wild, different stuff. And it can include feet and different targets. That's one of the things I think is kind of valuable in some of the studies I've been doing lately. If, let me use you again, Kyle. Here. That you say, man, you're out here fooling around and you step on their foot. Well, good. The foot's a useful thing. He's a one-legged thing now. So you step on the foot, you step on the ankle. Good. You take his knee in a little bit. Good. You get behind the knee a little bit. Good. You get behind the foot a little bit. Good. All these little actions down in the lower part of the body that judo gets you conversant with, probably shouldn't ignore them. They're all pretty useful. You're up here, upright, you're slightly behind him, and you want to stimulate his hip a little. Right in the back of the thigh. Good. Side of the thigh. Good. Makes things move. Into the groin. Good. Good things to have. Step on the foot again. Turn the head for him. Grab his nose. Good. Very useful stuff. All very popular things that we tend not to do. Under the ear. Good. You think, ow, ooh, ooh, there's a bunch of painful stuff. It's great stuff in survival mode. Because sometimes you'll be in the middle of a mix and you've got nothing else to do, and you say, I think I'll take my thumb and stick it right behind his ear as hard as it'll go, or up under the soft tissue right here. And you'll get some attention out of them. They'll change their perspective. They'll do something else other than be thumping you, you know. I don't think it's great for polite play all the time, but you don't want to ignore it. Because, hey, Uke's the guy that gets to do all the dirty tricks. Uke's the guy that gets to come in here and be aggressive and be offensive and grab a hold and try to get you and put a hand in your face and do all the nasty things. That should be Uke. Uke should have all that capacity. And if Uke only lives in the world of doing this and doing that, You know, I'm not a big fan of, okay, I'm gonna do, you know, praying mantis on you. I don't know that, there might be some cool stuff in there. But I'm definitely interested in uke that can actually deliver energy all over the body and building that capacity in all different places on the body. And the big fundamental places here and here, good. I think that's a great place to start. Because if you can't lay it on their face and you can't grab them by the hand or just put a hand on them, if you can't just put a hand on him and suck his center into you a little bit and start operating on him from the get-go, then you need to build that capacity. You need to feel how you own their center. And it's a feel deal more than anything. Feeling and placement of your center in relation to them. Cool? Anyway, that's all I got to say. Mat's open. We got a little bit of break time, so enjoy it, and class will be at 6. Thank you.